everyone, welcome to Stitch and Bear Time. My name is Leslie and Little Bear is around here somewhere. Little Bear, come here. Hold on. Here he is. He's a very heavy 45-pound boy. I know that doesn't seem very big, but when you pick him up it is. Look at that cute face. Mwah. Okay, I'm gonna put him down and we'll continue. All right. So we are gonna finish off Patchwork Santa. I'm so excited to show you guys the rest of this video. It turned out absolutely beautiful. I love this stocking. We will go over how to make the rest of the toys. And I did figure out how to do the doll's hair. That was a process. And then I'll show you how to make this little tag, put on the backing. He wants my husband's breakfast. I'm sorry about that. Put on the backing. And then we will get the lining put in there as well. And we will have a completed stocking. Stay tuned for the end of this video because I'm going to give you guys a sneak peek as to what our next project is going to be. It's going to be more Halloween themed next time. So stay tuned and let's get started. So I had to make the Gingerbread Man, and it was a really straightforward process, so I didn't show you guys exactly, but there he is in his little pocket. And then I had to move on to making the candy cane, attaching it to the stocking, and then I had to do the bear. And the bear had a lot of pieces to it. It was a lot of just cutting, stuffing, appliquing on over and over and over again until I had all the pieces of the bear together. Funny thing is, when I had to make the bear's nose and mouth, that was embroidery work, I had a blank piece right there. It was blank, so I had to make it up. So next was making the bow, and I've never actually made a bow where I had to fold it the way that I'm folding it here. So I figured that would be something new for you guys too. So it was actually really easy. I just folded one side over, put a stitch in there to hold it. Now I'm folding the other side over, also putting a stitch in there to hold it. And then afterwards, I had to wrap that long bottom piece there all the way around the bow, and I made it pretty snug so that that bow looks the way it needs to. And then once that piece wraps around to the back, you're going to secure that in place with a few stitches as well. So as you can see, I'm doing that right there. And then afterwards, I am going to attach it to my bear. So I'm just cutting off the extra string. And I realized I never showed you guys how I attach pieces to a stocking. When you read that in the instructions, it kind of leaves you to be like, well, figure it out. So the way I attach pieces to my stocking, I have my knot come up from the back of my stocking, and my needle will go through some stuffing. And when it comes to attaching pieces, I think that's okay to have your needle go through stuffing, just to get the look that you're going for. So you can see me do that right there. Yep, and then I snag a little piece of the back of the bow, and then I have my needle come back down where it came before, just like that. And then I pull it tight and knot it in the back, and then it won't go anywhere. And with bigger pieces, I put in a few more stitches. There he is, he looks so cute. Now it's time to make the toys, which I'm so excited to show you. Here we start with the snowman, and I had never shown you guys a lazy daisy stitch before. That stitch isn't very common from my experience. I feel like I've done it on one other stocking. I think it was the Christmas Angel stocking, and I did it only like a handful of times, and that was it. I was done. And I haven't really seen it again since. So the way you do this is you bring your needle up at the very point of what looks like a little raindrop stamped on there, and then you make a little loop, hold that loop, and put your needle back down where you came from. And then take a close look at where my needle's at. It popped back out where that round edge of that stamp is at. Yep, just like that. And then you're going to pull, so you have that loop. Now you're not going to pull all the way, otherwise you're going to lose that loop entirely. So you want to make sure that it lays correctly, kind of flatten it out a little bit to get a sense of how it's supposed to look. And then once you feel really good about it and you think it's the way you want it to look, that's when you're going to anchor it down and see where my needle goes. And then you're just going to pull through. And that is the lazy daisy stitch. And I only do 2 of those in this entire stocking, but I figured I'd show you. And there's my little bear being all cute with that little snowman. I added some arms to him, so that completed his look. And then I moved on to the tree, just added some beads. It was pretty straightforward, the tree. So then I had to do the doll. I was a little nervous to do the doll because there were a lot of pieces to it, and the hair I knew was going to take me a while because I'd never done it before. So what I'm showing you here, I'm grabbing 5 yards of this gold floss, which is equivalent to 36 inches each of gold floss. It had me cut those up so that I had 29-inch segments of the gold floss. That is each individual strand of the dolly's hair. And then I had to attach it to her head, which took me a long time. I would say it took me about 30-ish minutes to get all of this done, just to attach the hair to her, because I was also learning at the same time. And you have to do this 20 times. So it took me a while. As you can see, I'm just trying to attach the very first strand to the center of her head, and wherever you sew it, that's basically like your hairline, you know, when you part your hair. Anytime you sew the hair on, that's kind of like where your part's at. And you'll see what I mean as we go through it. It creates her part in the middle of her head. So let's speed this up because this took me a long time. I'm not going to show you everything I did with the hair, but I'm going to speed this up to get closer to the end. So as you can see, I had to put each individual strand on her head. It was very fiddly. And my needle was going into places that I knew was going to get covered up with hair. So that's why it kind of looks like my needle's going into random places into her head, but it's going to get all covered up with hair, so it doesn't even matter. There's the back of her head, and if I wanted to continue on with hair all the way to the very back of her head, I would have just bought more of that gold floss. So I fiddled with her for another half hour. It took me that long to realize maybe I should put her hair into pigtails before I braid it because I couldn't braid it. I was having such a hard time with it. So once her hair were in pigtails, I was finally able to braid her hair. Notice how every time I pulled on her hair a little bit, the whole doll came with me, and that's what made it hard to braid it. There I am knotting off the end of her braid. I had to do that 3 more times, and then I finally had a finished dolly. All I had to do was put her braids up. I made some red cording, tied some bows around them, and that is the finished dolly. Very, very cute. I would do it again, but now I know more this time. It was time for me to make the mini stocking, and what goes in the mini stocking is the little candy cane, which required me to do a lot of satin stitching. So I got very good at my satin stitching, good practice. There it is all completed, and then it was time to attach everything. Now it was time to put all my toys in this little bag, and I did attach all the toys to the stocking because I don't want them to get lost. I don't see any point in me being able to take them out and put them back in. That's just not going to work for me. So everything is attached, but I love how much everything comes out, that 3D effect. It is the most I've seen on a stocking so far. So right now I'm working on the tag, and as you can see, I have already gotten started. I have done a bunch of embroidery work and sequins, and before I put this star together, I need to embroider this piece here and put a name on it. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to find your instructions, and usually they provide an alphabet, like this one here. And then what you need next is tracing paper, which I've already cut out some tracing paper. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna draw a line to make sure that's straight. And there it is. And then I need to find my letter S, and I'm going to trace it. And then obviously I'll find all the other letters, the A, N, T, A, trace it on, and then from there we're gonna pin it to our star. So I've done some tracing. I made 2 different ones. I made one with the name Santa, just to see if it would fit. I don't think it will. I'm barely, if I like put it up here, it probably would, but I don't want it like that. I would have to make the font smaller. So another thing I could do if I didn't want to go that route, I could do initials, and I think that's what I'm gonna do for this tag, since it's gonna be for Santa Claus. I think that will just look a lot better in this little star. It's kind of a small tag, so that makes the most sense to me. So as you can see here, I have my tracing paper pinned on to my felt, and I think I have it pretty centered. Now the instructions tell me to do an outline stitch with red thread. I usually like to do a chain stitch, but the star is so much smaller than what I'm used to. I think an outline stitch will look good. I'm not a big fan of the red on gold. I know that's the color combination they've been using throughout the stocking, but it just doesn't stand out to me. It's just a little faded. My instinct is telling me to go white on gold. That's not what they've been doing throughout this stocking. What they have also been doing is green on gold. That one I've seen a lot on the stocking. They would match the theme and it stands out. You'll definitely see the letter Santa Claus. I don't know what to do. I gotta think about it. Okay, give me a second to think about it and I'll figure it out. Okay, so obviously I chose the green thread. I think it just stands out more and it looks, I feel like you guys can't really tell on the video, maybe because there's a shadow. I think it looks really good against the gold. So we're gonna go with the green thread. Now that I've done the outline stitch on the S and the C, I'm going to take this paper off. And you wanna be very careful when you do this because you don't wanna ruin your stitches. And that's another thing about the chain stitch that I like. I feel like it's just more secure than the outline stitch, but you can still do this. Okay, Santa Claus. So cute. Now I said I might put some bling on this and I might. Let me look through what I have and see what I'm gonna do about that. It's all done. There we go. I blinged it up a little bit. Nothing too fancy, just a couple extra beads on it and sequins. Just to make it a little pretty. So let's put this star together. Here are all my little pieces I need to get in order, sew together, so that it will create a star. And let's see if I can do this correctly. 1, 2, nice. That worked out well. Okay, I gotta get this little circle in the middle though. It requires a sequin and a bead, and I love that because there's no applique that needed to happen. Wonderful. That would have been really hard with all those other little beads around. Then I gotta put the front and the back together. And I made this red cording ahead of time, and I wanna make sure I don't forget to put it in there because I've done that before. Take my pin to pin it in place so that it will stay when I am appliquing my front and my back together. And I have to stuff this piece too. And there it is, all nice and fat and fluffy. Perfect, it's so cute. And I'm so glad that I decided to add some extra gold beads to the back just to make it stand out a little bit more. Before I attach the backing, first I am going to sew on my little tag. I get these from Mary Stocking. And then after that, I'm going to cut out what's basically my pattern for the lining. So I took 2 pieces of tracing paper and I taped them together. I placed my stocking on top, and then I took a pencil and I just traced on my tracing paper. And next I am going to cut it out. And as you can see, they match perfectly together. Now that I have cut out what's basically the pattern for my lining, I'm actually going to set this aside. And I'm actually going to get started on attaching the backing to the front of my stocking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up really well. I'm going to pin the back of this to the front, and then I'm going to start trimming away what I don't need. And then I'll just start appliquing them together. So now I'm cutting the top, I'm trimming it down, and I always do that last in case I need a little extra from shifting the white around and just making it fit. And as you can see, the white is matched perfectly with the maroon. Let's do the lining. I want to show you the fabric that I'm using before I cut into it. Look at that shine. It's so pretty. Alright, I'm going to get to ironing. And yes, I did buy a new iron because I also make quilts, so now I need a good iron. So I went ahead and spent the money. Okay, let's do this. So now that I have ironed out my fabric, it was time to cut out our pattern. Of course, the most important part of this is right sides together. You see how the sparkly side of my fabric is touching each other, and I'm actually going to be working with the wrong side of my fabric. So I'm just cutting off the selvage, and I am making it a little bit smaller overall just because I bought half a yard. I plan on using the extra for something different. Really all you need is a fat quarter. So if you find a fat quarter, that's the perfect amount that you're going to need to line your stocking. After that, I folded up the extra, pinned my pattern to my fabric, and I'm just going to say this again, right sides together. You will see I'm working with the wrong side of my fabric right now. After that, it was time to take my pen. This is a water-soluble, iron-away pen, and I outlined the top of my stocking. And then I got to cutting. And I did not cut the top of my stocking, I cut everything else around it. And I did use my rotary cutter and one of my quilting rulers to help me. It's just way quicker. And of course, safety. Think about safety when you use a rotary cutter. Never just use it without any kind of ruler to protect your fingers. So I took my pattern off, I pinned my fabric back together because I don't want it shifting on me. I wanted to remind you, right sides together. And then you can see that line at the top of my stocking. I'm going to use that line to fold it later, so very important to have that there. It was time to turn on my machine. I used a 2.0 stitch length, and I like to have my needle down when it ends. And then I got to sewing. So I am using a 1/4 inch foot. That's just my preference. And I didn't start at the very top of my stocking. I started where that purple line was at. And I'm just going to sew all the way around. And you don't need to do this with the sewing machine. You can hand sew this. So don't think you need to spend the money on a sewing machine if you don't have one. That's not necessary. And now I'm going to end at the other side where that purple line is at. And then afterwards, I'm going to iron where that purple line was at. That's my fold line. So I'm ironing it over, and I'm going to do that to both sides at the very top of my stocking. This gives a very nice finish to the top of your lining, and it helps you sew it on later. So very important step to this. And when you open it up in the inside, you can see the sparkly stars in there. So then I took it back to my sewing machine, and where I folded it, I sewed it because I want it to stay like that. Now, I don't have a 1/4 inch seam here. I actually have it more towards an angle, as you can see there. That's important to do in order for it to open up correctly. And then I gave you one more look of inside the lining. From here, it was time to stuff my lining into my stocking. So you don't have to worry about turning anything inside out. It's just a quick stuffing process. And as you can see, I'm making sure it fits in there really well, and the top matches perfectly with my stocking. Let's move on to putting the hanger on the stocking. Let's talk about the hanger. I know that there are a lot of examples out there on Facebook how people are embellishing them, making them double layered. That's just not me when it comes to the hanger. Once I get to the hanger, I'm like, all right, I'm done with this stocking. Let's move on to the next project. That's just kind of how I am towards the end of things. What I like to do with my hangers, I like to actually hang my stockings like this. Not like this, because then they don't hang right. You don't actually see the design very well. When you make the hanger like this and put it on the hook, the design shows directly towards you. You can see what the stocking looks like really, really well. The way I'm going to do this, I'm going to put part of my hanger in like that, and then I'm going to put the other part of the hanger like that. That way it's going to hang nicely, and you'll see what I'm saying at the end when I take pictures of it. Okay, so I've already gotten this hanger on, and we talked about the tag, and I decided that I was gonna attach it right there, and I didn't make it super tight so I can still kind of mess with the string a little bit, right and left, depending on how it's doing. So there's the tag, cute. And then the very last step is to attach the top of the lining. And that's it. And then this thing's gonna be done. And there it is, all finished. I do want to point out that even though this is probably more of like an intermediate stocking with how much work that goes into it, Bucilla does make their kits so that they are beginner friendly. So if you have already opened this up and you've never done a stocking before, you definitely can get this finished. It's just going to be a lot of work, but it's so worth it at the end. Here are a few pictures that I took while I was having it hang there, just to post on Facebook and a few Bucilla groups. There's the back, close up on Santa's face, and then the overall look. I am so happy with how this turned out. And we are all done, just like that. Okay, so I promised you a sneak peek as to what we're going to do with our next project. I will probably post a video on it in about 3 weeks is what I'm guessing. It's gonna be a little bit of time because I gotta take a little break from the Bucilla stuff, finish one of my quilts, and then I'll get back into it. But at least I can show you what it is. The Haunted House Bucilla kit. Yay, I'm gonna embrace this orange. I love this. I've had this for a while now, probably like a year in my stash. So it's time to open it up and it's time to do it. Okay, I will see you all next time. Thank you all for watching and enjoy the rest of your summer. What's left of it, there isn't a whole lot, but it's time for fall and I'm excited for it. See you then, bye.